Hello and welcome to another episode of Mysteries with the History, where I'll take you on the wild ride into the unknown, the strange, and the mysterious. Like you, I have questions, and like you, I want answers. I want to say hi to everyone in the live chat today. Hey, Philip, Christina, how you doing? Zenza, Bill, one of the best moderators out there. Thank you for being here today. We got Jonaside, Less Sweet, Dubba, Zero Cool. How is everyone doing today? I'm so happy all of y'all could make it. And to anyone that is new, welcome to the channel. Thank you for being with me here today for this live stream. And quick question: have any of you signed up for the newsletter yet? You see, there's going to be some pretty cool changes coming soon to this channel, which shows and the schedule. There's going to be a few switch ups, some pretty cool stuff coming in the near future. So just go to my website, scroll down a bit, and enter your email to be kept up to date with all of the developments. Um, so today's show is going to be about UFO crash retrievals. And I want to see in the live chat what your favorite movies, TV shows, and books are when it comes to this topic, because there are quite a few of them. And I'm just going to say I like them all. I don't want to be biased here. I like all of them. But I do want to hear what your guys' favorites are. So people have been asking about the graphics and the video I made to promo this show with the UFO crashing. And yes, is the answer. I made that myself. I love doing video editing and video special effects, and I'm thinking of getting into film making at some point, features for this really fantastic topic. So thank you for all the kind comments all throughout social media. And I put some heavy metal music in there just for Jimmy, who of course loves guitar metal. So, with all that being said, I do want to bring in my extra special co-host, Jimmy Church from Fade to Black. Hey, Jimmy, how you doing today? Don't play that trick on me again.
Oh, it's not going to fly.
It's not gonna fly this
It's
time.
so good 2 weeks in a row. So good. How are you?
I am excited. Actually, I was a little bit nervous at first, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, where is my co-host?" But then you made it right on time, and I was like, I stopped sweating, and I feel a little better.
It's been crazy. It's been crazy. I said last night, on the show on Fade to Black, the community never stagnates, never gets boring around here. It just doesn't. And it's been a pretty interesting day today. But
Is it every day?
well, it is, but I love it. It's just you never know what to expect, and things are always moving and changing, and with I mean, it goes without saying, with social media today and the interaction that this community can have now in real time. A story breaks. There's some news. There's a video. There's a photograph, an image, a comment. Uh, it all happens in real time. And watching everybody interact, it's never been like this. Today, we're kind of used to it, but it wasn't like that 25 years ago. Certainly, AOL came along, and we've slowly gotten used to this absolute instantaneous sharing of news. It's
Absolutely.
instantaneous, and where you go for your platform of choice is up to you. But that interaction is always there, and it's great. It just doesn't get boring. It
And
wasn't boring before, but it's definitely not boring now.
well, I mean, back in the day, I mean, even 20 years ago, you had to go to the library. You had to find someone who was very knowledgeable in the certain topic, in this case, the UFO topic. And that was really hard to come by, especially at that time when it just wasn't very popular. And then now you can just go on Google. And I'm really happy you brought that up, because today I was doing a lot of research, and last night as well, about today's beautiful topic. And I was just thinking to myself, while I was doing research, I can literally Google anything. And maybe I won't get the data that I need, but the fact that it's there and I can get it in seconds versus driving to the library, only getting maybe 5 books on the topic and then crying myself to sleep, I simply can't imagine that just 15, 20 years ago, when now everything's on Google.
I thought I had the world by the tail when I had an awesome newsstand across the street from my house, right? Where I could walk to the newsstand and get the new Omni magazine once a month, the new UFO magazine, and other things that were out there, science fiction related, that I could do that from, a block from my house, and how great that was. And that was as fast as things happened. And it was once a month, every couple of weeks as these new issues would come through. I was able to grab them right away, and I thought I was pretty badass. I really did, and that was 1995,
Man,
right?
I grew up in an age where I spent all of my high school life in the library, even in my beginning years of college. Like, I grew up in the library. And at this time, it was considered cool to be in the library because no one was ever there. And actually, in one of the schools I went to, there were only like maybe 100 books when there should have been a few thousand. And I'm thinking, does no one read books anymore? Like, what am I doing here?
I just recently, because I just moved into this new home, I was unpacking some boxes, and I found a box of UFO books.
No.
And I was just and I had they have been in storage. I have all the new stuff. I have literally hundreds and hundreds of books, but I'm talking about my UFO collection from back in the day. Stanton Friedman and Bill Moore just I
The
mean,
good
I
stuff.
just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And each one of them I've read so many times. I have a Top Secret. Oh man, I just can't. I was just blown away. And so I pulled out about 10. Maybe I'll get them on the show tonight or tomorrow night that I want to go back and reread. And you should see these pages. I've obviously read these things so many times, and it got to the point before we move on to today's topic. I read so many books in before 1995 where I would be reading a book and did I already read this one? Wait a minute, and I started to repeat the knowledge. One author's writing, another author is writing, and you would see them overlap. But I was reading so many books that it got to the point where I was getting confused. Right? I'm like, did I already read this? And I would go back to another book and page through it and thinking about where I am now and the rest of the world today with instantaneous research. I actually did what everybody else did. Have to go back and read pages and how long it would take
You need to put
to
like
find.
post-it notes as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
just to
yeah.
find your page. And that was hard. And like going through the index and the glossary. And that takes way too much time. Now you just have Google. But let's dive into the topic. There's a lot of things to cover. And I want to say thank you to everyone giving super chats and being a part of the YouTube community as well. And Pete, it is so good to catch you in the live. Thank you for being here, my friend. Okay, now let us start. Oh, and Laura, thank you for the super sticker and for being a special YouTube subscriber for the channel. That's fantastic. So, with crash retrievals, there are a few cases I want us to cover, but then also kind of like some side topics. So, I'm just going to go with the first case I have written down here, which is one of the more recent ones. And then hopefully we can kind of talk about some other factors that are very prominent when it comes to crash retrievals and things that we've actually already talked about on this show. So, the first case I want to talk about is Needles, California in May of 2008. Do you know the story, Jimmy?
Oh, do I know this story?
So I will give the black and white version, and then you can add all the color you want to it. Okay.
Sure. Go ahead.
So in 2008 in California, people saw a big bright blue object that crashed near the Colorado River pretty late at night. And this there as soon as it crashed, okay, there were some air ambient units usually would be kind of around that area before this crash, but instead in this specific one in May, there were black helicopters, multiple black helicopters, and dark vehicles with military license. And these were seen by multiple witnesses, one of them being Frank Costigan. Okay. And what later the people were saying was that they saw this crash. It obviously had burnt down or something like that. It hit the ground and it caused this huge fire. And during this recovery of the craft by these military officials, people were saying that it kind of was like a light turquoise in color, and there was just kind of this large lump on top of it on a very on a unusually pretty flat shape. So it looked practically like a flying saucer. And meanwhile, as soon as it crashed a few hours later, I'm assuming, they saw helicopters actually lifting up this craft in the air and taking it to a location. Now, what was really interesting about this is that a little bit later on, about 5 years later, people were saying or attempting to debunk the story, saying that it was a new kind of drone technology, and then its self destruction function like went off or something like that, and it just crashed and burned. But later, when people were looking at the story and they're like, well, it's a bit odd, because the thing that kind of gave it away that made the story slightly unbelievable was why were huge kind of tank military helicopters dragging it back through the air to a location. They can just those kinds of drones don't need such a heavy helicopter to lift these things. And that's just kind of like the premise of the story. What I want to hear your version of it now, Jimmy.
Well, I've got a pretty interesting semi-direct involvement with this case, and so um, I'm going to back up probably about 8 years, and back then, Frank Costigan reached out to me on some other issues, and there were a couple of other witnesses that I was introduced to later and spoke to him about this case. But going back to Frank, so there was a little thing that was going on, and he got a hold of me and asked me for his help, and so I did all, and I said, Frank, are you? Can we talk about the Needles UFO crash? Yeah, are you cool with that? Yes. And so I got from Frank the entire firsthand account and what he saw, and I was able to. I think some of this was done on the air. We're going back a long ways, and I can't remember. My memory's not that good, but although he was on the show with me. But anyway, we talked at length over a few days about the incident, and I spoke to somebody that was on the river. I spoke to well, anyway, I don't want to get into my memory about names and specifics and what people did, but I believe Frank worked at a radio station, and or maybe his friend did, and that was the opposite, but that part doesn't matter. They both saw different stages of the same incident, and their stories matched, although they weren't together and they weren't at the same location. But what is interesting about the case is, if we're going to talk about a crash retrieval, not a crash, but a crash retrieval, this is a classic example of that. And I believe that with the witnesses that came forward, and there were additional witnesses. I only spoke to three. I believe three. The town of Needles, which we need to talk about for a second, is important here because Needles is in a very unique area but it's also very small. It's a very small town. Now, Needles, California is on the 15 freeway between Riverside and Las Vegas. It's still in California, the Mojave Desert. So when you're driving north on the 15, I think they called it Needles because they had a big thermostat needle that stuck out of the ground and would have the temperature on it because it was always like 180 degrees, every single day. And so you would drive by and you could, I think, maybe I'm making that up. But anyway, that's Needles, California.
I like the honesty.
So, well, because when you drive through Needles, you see this thermostat there off of the freeway. And so I don't know. Anyway, so Needles, you can drive through this town in 15 seconds when you're on the freeway. And it's right there. Well, it's on both sides of the freeway. But if something is going to happen in this very small town, I'm going to say population, I don't know, 1,000. And I think maybe even that is pushing it. I don't know. And for the good people at Needles, if you're 15,000, I didn't know that. I don't know where everybody's at, but it's a very small town. So if something happens here,
it's 4,000, almost 5,000 from 2019.
Yeah, exactly. So it's this big, right? Needles, California. So if you're going to have something, crash, any event in this town, everybody's going to know about it. And if you're going to have trucks and military vehicles and the men in black show up in town, everybody's going to see it. You can't hide this incident. So this is what I was told, that the craft was blue or green, came flying over the town and crashed nearby. I think it crashed on the edge of a river or a lake.
Yeah.
But everybody could see where it landed and where it crashed. There was talk at the time. They didn't really know what it was. And I remember Frank saying, it was just glowing and it crashed. So anyway, it didn't say if they thought it was a plane. I'm pretty sure, I don't think anybody jumped on the UFO bandwagon very quickly here, but everybody thought it was a plane crash. But nearly instantly, I don't know if that's minutes or hours, but the next thing you know, the very small town of Needles has got a parade of military vehicles that show up. And Frank had told me, he was like, dude, man, it was a bunch of SUVs. It was military trucks. It was big trucks. It was Humvees, and everything pulled into town. And they had government license plates. I could see everything, but all of the vehicles were black. And they make their way over to the crash site. And he had said then, I believe Frank, I think there's some pictures, this is a big event. This is pretty substantial. And also this is 2008. So witness number 2, I spoke to, and I'll think of his name in a second. I remember Frank because Frank got a hold of me first on a separate issue. This wasn't about Needles. And Frank was really cool. And I stayed in contact with him for a while. I don't know if he's still around. This was 13 years ago.
Wow.
Well, the crash was 13 years ago. I spoke to Frank in 2012, 2013, I'm guessing. So 8 or 9 years ago. Anyway, second witness that I speak to says that they went to the site. They had heavy trucks, and they go out there and for quite a while. But then they brought in this ginormous helicopter. And the witness told me, this is what I remember. And it was interesting for you to say, flying saucer, domed top, that kind of thing. Because the witness, from my memory, said that this thing came in and picked it up and it flew over the town, and it was uh, a rectangle, like it was
Interesting.
uh, like a semi trailer. And I had asked him then, did they put the craft inside of this box? Right? Was the box brought out there? They put the craft inside the box. He did not know, but what he saw was like a bust sized in shape semi truck thing underneath this helicopter, which flew over the town and up and over and towards Area 51, heading north to Las Vegas. Now that's the story. Now this is the other part. I don't think that there's any question that a top secret something crashed in Needles, California. Whether what the aircraft was it ET? I don't think we'll ever know. But the response from the military, the FAA didn't show up. There wasn't any FAA investigations brought in. There was some communication. I think Frank told me that he contacted one of the local airports out there and was asking them about was there any crashes that happened in the area. I don't know what airport that was, and they said no, right? And I thought that was interesting, and that the FAA didn't have a report. There wasn't any civilian involved. There wasn't an FAA crash team, which every airplane, whether it's small or big, crashes in the United States. The FAA goes out, investigates because they want to know what caused the crash. Is it an aircraft failure, the pilot drinking, plane run out of gas, whatever whatever happened, it gets investigated by the FAA. That didn't happen this time around. This was a military project that rolled into town, grabbed whatever crashed, and then split. And so it was the crash definitely happened, and it wasn't a civilian aircraft. What it was, we don't know, but it's one of the great cases. One of the great cases.
And before we get to the next case, let's just talk about crash retrievals in general. Don't you think it's pretty bizarre that such ancient technology that we classify as incredibly advanced and we're getting multiple crashes throughout the globe? Like, doesn't that seem a bit odd to you? That there are very, very, very few plane crashes that happen globally. Okay. And when they do, it's pretty well documented. But now you're having a decent amount of UFO crashes that happen throughout the globe, especially in the desert here in the United States. And we classify these beings that pilot these crafts as advanced. What's going on there?
Well, yeah, see, but isn't that exactly what we're always talking about, right? When trying to figure this stuff out. I'm not. As soon as something goes silent, right? As soon as you have witnesses and you're not able to chase things down, and data goes missing, the description of the craft cannot be verified. When all of this stuff happens, that's the spooky part. If it's a plane crash, we know. We know where it took off from. We know where it was going. We know who the passengers were. We know the type of aircraft. We know the age of the aircraft. We've got its inspection history, its registration history. All of that is right there in front of us. As soon as that stuff goes away, that's when you've got to start scratching your head. Is this experimental? Is this something not made on this earth? Where was it taken to? And where can we get the reports about what this aircraft was? That's part. Okay, so and even more direct answer to that is in the new intelligence bill with the budget for the new UAP task force, which is going to go under another name. We don't know what that name is yet. It's an unnamed group. One of the things that they have to do now is anything recovered, any debris, any parts, any UAPs recovered have to be officially reported. In the past, you don't know. You don't know where this stuff is going to. You don't know if it has gone to a private company or corporation for research. You don't know if it went to Wright Pat or Edwards Air Force Base or Area 51, Kirkland. We don't know any of this information. What did this happen? When did it happen? How did it happen? And what happened? What was it? And now this stuff has to be reported. And the way that it's passed in the budget, and this was according to Lou Elizondo, who was on Fade to Black a couple of weeks ago talking about this. And I just got off the phone with Lou today, everybody. By the way, Lou says hi. And
Hi, Lou.
specifically to you, Cristina, I told him I was coming on with you this afternoon. So, but that this is now law. So let's see. Last night on the show, before we move on to the next case, I had on Rick Doty. Did you listen to the broadcast?
I listened to the beginning of it.
Oh, you
And then I
missed
had
the best part.
assignments.
Oh, you missed the best part. At the end of the show last night, or in the middle, 3/4 of the way through, he talked about this crash retrieval that happened up in North Dakota, I believe. Somebody can correct me. But a northern central state that on this rancher calls and says, I've got something crashed on my property. And so he goes out, Rick, and with another researcher, and he was working for a Hal Putoff at the time. So he goes out and he looks, and his son, it turned out the rancher's son thought it was a plow. And that's a strange description. But more directly to the point, the craft had been there for a year and a half. That's it, a year and a half. So Doty gets out there and he sees that, no, this isn't a plow. Doty described it as, and this is right what we're talking about right now. It's round, it's spherical, and it had a V-shaped construction underneath it. And I thought that was interesting. Hence, maybe this plow idea. I don't know. But Doty says he looks at it and goes, that's interesting. And Doty had to call the local Air Force base up there. I think it was, I don't know, local Air Force base to get them to come out and get this thing. And he said it took forever to convince the Air Force to come out because he's telling them, dude, it's a satellite. It could be a UFO. I don't know, but this is something that we need to take a look at. So Doty says that they come out, they pick it up, they look at it, and it's obviously interesting. And that's it. He doesn't know where the craft went, who investigated it, whose it was, what the materials were, nothing. It just vanished and it's gone, and so, and it was on this farmer's property for a year and a half, and a very significant, not only crash, but the retrieval of something, whether it's Russian. He said that this was in 2008. Same year as Needles.
Dun, dun,
Oh,
dun.
man.
Coincidence? I think not.
Okay, everybody, I'll show what that phone call is coming in. And just hang on.
Alrighty.
Hey, Jacques, I'm on a radio program right now. Can I call you back in about 60 minutes? Yeah, absolutely, Jacques. Thank you so much, my friend. Bye. I bounced Jacques for Cristina Gomez.
Thank you.
This is my day. This is what goes on in my world. This is what goes on in my world. Okay, so back to that happened in 2008, same year as Needles. Isn't that interesting? But now a crash retrieval like this has to be reported. It has to go into the public domain. It has to. This stuff isn't going to be away from the public anymore. And I'm very, very excited about it. Now, the question is, what is determined as classified? What isn't? What goes into the public domain? What isn't? Is there going to be a Freedom of Information Act type of paper trail for other researchers to go out and investigate if there is something that happens on a day and a date, and you have this information? Can you go in and chase this down? Or is this information going to be presented to the public? A crash retrieve or ice cream and ramen, nothing else.
Lou, thank you so much for the super chat. You're awesome. And it will go straight to ice cream and ramen. I bought some very fresh, like, that's not fresh, it's actually frozen ramen that I've never bought before. And I'm excited to try it. Totally not related to this, but it's exciting.
Frozen ramen. That's a UAP. Right, that's a real UAP. But so what is going to be revealed to the public? And even if it is something as simple as something happened on this date and here is the location, something was recovered, and they don't tell us anything else, that's a giant step forward. That's huge. And now, are they going to, tell us about the alien bodies and where they went to? I don't think so. But there you go. Okay, next case.
Well, a little bit earlier, you talked about a law, and I want to talk about another one that came out in 1965, and it's called the Extraterrestrial Exposure Law.
Oh.
And it was released by NASA.
Yeah. That's a great law.
It's interesting.
Was it 65? I'm thinking more like 1970, 68, but we can go with 65. But I'm sorry, Cristina, that was just rude. It was 1965.
Well, if anyone's in the live chat and you want to check the date, please do, in case either of us are incorrect. It's always good to know.
This is what makes me nervous. I remember this. Okay, so if it was 65, I was only 2. You're making me. So, but I actually remember this law, and it was fascinating. Okay. I want to hear the Cristina Gomez black and white pragmatic definition of this law. Give that to me.
Alrighty. So I just found out about this law this morning. Okay, so this is like pretty interesting to me. Oh, Chester said 1969. Okay. A few years off. But that's pretty good. Thanks, Chester.
I feel younger already.
So what it is practically saying here, and it's a very, very short document called the Extraterrestrial Exposure Law. And it says here, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, but it says NASA's policy, responsibility, and authority to guard the Earth against any harmful contamination or adverse changes in its environment resulting from personal spacecraft and other property returning to Earth after landing on or coming within the atmospheric envelope of a celestial body.
Mm-hmm.
Then it goes into a little bit more detail about if a civilian is in contact with something that comes from space and hits Earth, they need to go into quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, they're able to question them, and it's all under a law. Now, if any civilian goes against being quarantined, they can be in prison for a year or pay a $5,000 fine.
Correct. Now, when I was a kid, and all of my friends were all into space and UFOs and astronauts and stuff, and we were talking about this law. And one of the reasons why this law was talked about so much in 68 and 69 and the necessity for it is that we were watching the astronauts come back from space, and they would immediately get locked into an Airstream trailer, right? And they're like in the windows, waving out. And what was why are they doing this? Well, what if, and movies like the Andromeda Strain and different sci-fi movies were always talking about some crazy extraterrestrial bacteria coming back, or something coming back and then growing into right, some kind of crazy monster, and an invasion Earth happens. Okay, all right, invasion of the body snatchers and all of those things. And that law for us was always about that. It wasn't about getting a Martian cold or the Martian flu. No, it was about ET, extraterrestrial, how do I say this? Children, right? Eggs, something like that coming through, and the invasion of Earth happening. And the other part that we always found very interesting is that this was like in it with fear of death, right? That you had to, if you came in contact with anything that fell out of the sky, you had to go into quarantine or you went to prison, right? And
Pretty extreme.
yeah. And I don't know if that law's ever been revoked.
It has. It was revoked. So it ended in 1977 and then it got revoked from the federal act in 1991.
So okay, so it was active until 1991, but it has to have been replaced with something else, right?
Now,
You have to go into quarantine. I mean, I would think
we've been doing it for a year, right? Just a little bit longer is fine, I guess.
do coronavirus. But yeah, I would think if you come back from Mars, you're going into quarantine. If you come back, even from the International Space Station. Now, we're talking about crash retrievals today, but let's talk about this quarantine.
Well, this is totally related to crash retrievals because there have been. I'll let you go.
No, it is. It is. About 3 years ago, 2 years ago, this crazy press release comes from NASA, and I think it also was released by Roscosmos out of the Soviet Union. But this was the press release, and I read this on the air, and I talked about this for a couple of weeks. No media outlet wanted to touch this, but the press release said that they found on the outside of the International Space Station, on the hull, outside, bacteria growing. Now, and you just kind of stop right there. Wait a minute. How can bacteria, anything, survive traveling in space? It landed on the space station and is now growing. Now, think of The Blob, right? Some crazy movie, but that's what's going on here. And it came from somewhere. Did it eject out of the atmosphere of Mars, Europa? I don't know where it came, or did it come from deep space? Is it interstellar? And is space full of microbial life that is growing in the heavy radiation? Remember, there's no oxygen, there's nothing to breathe. There isn't a food source, you would think. Does it live on radiation? All of these things come to play. Now, how is it reproducing? What is it eating? How is it living on the outside of the International Space Station? And could it get inside? And could it then return to planet Earth inside of a capsule, on clothing, skin, and then you have this transference of biological living material from space to planet Earth that it would burn up in the atmosphere, right? If it came through the atmosphere. But if it's inside the space capsule, and that's where this Quarantine Act comes in. And I'm not making any of this up. Go and check it out. Growing on the outside of the space station.
It's incredibly bizarre, and the fact that life can prosper anywhere, even if it's bacteria or multicellular life or tardigrades, regardless, if life can grow anywhere, then there's no way we're the only intelligent beings in the universe. And I read this quote and I forgot who said it, so forgive me for that. But it said, even if we are not alone in the universe, or if we are, both of them are equally terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, yeah, sounds about right.
Right.
Either way, it's pretty bizarre.
It might have been Arthur C. Clarke, and I could be wrong with that, but one of those science fiction writers wrote that, and it's a very famous quote. I'm thinking Arthur C. Clarke, but I could be wrong. Gene Roddenberry, one of those cats did it.
Well, we're going to jump into our next case, but first, thank you, Exofa, for the super sticker and for everyone being so lively in the chat today. And people are saying it is Arthur C. Clarke. Yes. Good one.
See,
Good one, Jim.
that's the bonus I get from being the old dude in the room. That's the bonus.
As long as you're mentally young, that's all that matters. As long as your imagination is still vivid, age, there's no such thing.
You know what I want? You know what I want to get? You know those little ant farms?
I used to have a bunch of those.
Right, and they're totally cool.
Very cool.
I want a tardigrade farm. Tardigrades. You know, and they're cute. Tardigrades are cute. When you see a tardigrade, don't you you know that's pretty cute.
No.
Cats
are cute.
They can survive anywhere. Tardigrades.
So can cockroaches, but those aren't cute either.
Yeah, but tardigrades can like freeze for like 20,000 years and come back. They can go to the moon and just hang out and come back. They can survive anywhere. Tardigrades are cool.
Yeah, they are, and they were in Star Trek Discovery.
Great. Oh, you know what? What a great series, and the whole tardigrade underlying subtext in the storyline that went on. I think pretty much the entire series. I think both seasons. It was tardigrades were the co-star.
It was pretty awesome. Yeah, Akashi Chris, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you so much.
Man,
okay.
Cristina needs money for two things.
Noodles and ice cream.
No. Socks and a new microphone boom.
Okay, so that's funny that you say that because I'm only wearing one sock because all of my other ones have holes. But yeah, we're not gonna like true story, so I'm only wearing one. I feel very awkward saying that now.
I did not know. No, don't imply that I knew that you were only wearing one sock.
Are you remote viewing? Is that what it was?
I got some alien socks for my birthday.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got them. I got alien socks for my birthday. All right, next case.
Okay, so the next one is Fort Dix in New Jersey in 1978.
Amazing case. Now, this case, okay.
Oh no, let me start it. Let me start it in the black and white version.
I want the black and white version of it. But this case is crazy town, and as if Needles wasn't a huge case, and we always talk about Roswell, and things. This case outside of Fort Dix in New Jersey is insane, and there were also multiple witnesses. Some of them we know, so
and
go ahead.
Some of them we don't.
But Christina's going to be here all week. Try the veal. All right, Cristina.
They'll all be dad jokes or like jokes from Spaceballs, and that's as good as it's going to get. Jokes are not my specialty. Okay. So I'm going to give a pretty quick version of this story. So this happened in 1978, and we are talking about a man by the name of George Filer III. Okay. And currently he is a retired Air Force major, and he was talking to the author called John L. Guerra, right?
Mm-hmm.
which ended up being a book about this exact encounter. So in January 1978, a 4-foot creature, gray and brown in color, with a very large head and long arms and a very thin body, was shot and killed at Fort Dix in New Jersey. And then it's claimed that a military police officer shot and killed the alien with a 45 caliber military issued handgun.
Mhm.
And this is, again, I'm giving you like the very outline of the story, but it is believed that not only this extraterrestrial was shot, but also the craft as well. And allegedly this alien got shot and ended up crawling into the forest, and later was found dead, I think the morning of, and it was like 3 or 4 in the morning, I believe, when George Filer came back into work the next day. So the military first spotted the alien after observing an oval-shaped blue-green craft hovering over a vehicle. And then the alleged alien died of a gunshot wound on the Air Force side of what is now known as the Joint Base McGuire Dix Lakehurst Air Force.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's kind of the very basics of the story. Later on, it was allegedly believed that this alien was taken to Hangar 11. And this is a pretty famous location at the Wright Patterson Air Force Base. And why is it famous? Well, because because this is where a lot of the involvement of the operation from Project Blue Book is involved. And that is the
Close enough.
story.
I think it's more famous because of the band Megadeth.
I don't think
Okay,
so.
no, okay. They got a great song called Hangar 18. Okay, this is this case. First off, George Filer, especially back in the day, one of the great researchers.
Okay. Well, sorry, Jimmy. I meant to say Hangar 18. I don't know why I said 11, but thank you, Groggy Nod, for correcting me on that. It is Hangar 18. Thank you.
Because of
Sorry about
Megadeth.
that.
That's the only reason why. See, the chat room knows Megadeth. They're like, Church is right. Hangar 18. That's why we know this. It's because of Megadeth. Um, Christina's not a fan of Megadeth. She is. She's more of a Dimebag Daryl kind of girl. So, Damage Plan. I think that's where Christina goes. Is that George Filer's files and his reporting of different UFO cases is really cool. His background, his military background, all of that comes into play, of course, but he is part of this story, which adds a lot to it. And also, George is going to make sure that the details are covered, and he is going to do the deep dive, which he did do. Now, let's back up for a second. We're talking about crash retrievals. I just mentioned the the intelligence bill that was just passed, and I mentioned the reporting of crash retrievals of UAPs and debris now needs to be reported. And we talked about the extraterrestrial law from 1969. Again, bacteria or anything or any contact with anything, you need to be quarantined. And again, or you get fined and go to prison if you don't. Well, all of this would come into play right now because of what happened in this case. But let me take it a step further. In this Senate, I keep saying Senate Intelligence Committee, in the intelligence budget, there was another point that was brought in here, and that was the health effects from people that come in contact with UAPs. And here we have a situation where a military police officer from Fort Dix shows up. My understanding, again, I'm not, this is just, from my memory, but he shows up, and he was like the passenger in a vehicle. The craft is witnessed. It lands, and they arrive. Um, this happened early in the morning. I had a couple of witnesses to this that were on Fade to Black that told the story. They're out there in this park area, woods, forest thing. They see this thing land, and then the military is right there in front of them. Okay, so multiple witnesses here. This guy, this Air Force police officer, gets out of this truck, I believe, and confronts this alien being, this ET that steps off of this craft and is standing in this field, and fires, like empties his service gun into this thing and takes him down. Filer says that the being died. This comes from George Filer himself, and Filer is about as credible as anybody that we could deal with in these issues. He's looking at the reports the next day, and the report said that the being died in captivity of gunshot wounds. But Filer says he then finds out that the body was taken to Wright Pat. This is the other part to the story that is pretty unclear. What happened to the craft? Plenty of chatter out there about where this body went, how it got shot, who shot him, put on an ambulance, taken over to Fort Dix, dies. The foreign technology department from Wright Pat shows up, takes the body from Fort Dix over to Wright Pat in Ohio, which is not that far away from New Jersey, by the way. So all of that goes up. But what happened to the craft? Again, going back to the same thing that gets repeated over and over again. People see the craft. People see the craft get loaded onto a flatbed truck. People see the craft being taken away by a helicopter. Cranes show up and lift these objects up, but we don't know what happened to it. And the same thing with this case in New Jersey with Fort Dix. Nobody knows what happened to the craft. And certainly we don't know what happened to the alien either after it got to Wright Pat in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio.
We don't know any of that information. And we are going to jump into a quick intermission and then to our next case.
Hi, I'm Micah Hanks, and let me tell you something. I support Cristina Gomez as a Patreon subscriber, and here's why you should too. She brings all of her unique insights to a whole new generation, and all while she's also going through college. Listen, support Cristina, become a Patreon subscriber today. You won't regret it.
If you want to support this channel and help me improve it, bring you new shows, more days in a week, and get access behind the scenes, videos, photos, and bonus Q&A sessions with guests, you can choose from different monthly tiers. Just click on the link below and keep me warm with warm socks for the winter. But seriously, the college life, I mean, it's awful. And I only eat noodles. Definitely having noodles, ice cream, and holy socks, but holy as in HOLY.
Do you add protein to the noodles?
Tofu.
What?
Yeah, or like bean sprouts, which bean sprouts and
I don't even know what that is.
Snapping peas, bean sprouts, also known as alien babies. Just kidding.
What?
No,
tofu.
So good. Anyways, let's jump into our next case. And this one is one of my favorites, and we're going to be bringing in some other aspects to the story that we have mentioned before on this show. And the story is the Kecksburg in Pennsylvania in 1965.
Yes. Man.
This one is pretty wild, and there are quite a few documentaries on this, TV shows, and books about this specific case. Now, just like Needles, California, Kecksburg, Pennsylvania is also a very small town. Like, it is very small. So if there's a crash that's happening there, everyone in the town is going to know about it. And in this case, A lot of people did, and there were multiple eyewitness accounts. So, a brief overview about this story is that there was a fireball that came from the sky and then it crashed on the ground, and people classified it or described it kind of like an acorn shaped craft. Later, scientists said, no, it was just a meteor. That's all it was. But that simply, I don't think, was the case, at least allegedly, because there were the men in black were involved, military were also involved in the retrieval of this craft, at least allegedly. Okay. So witnesses believed that the acorn came kind of down in a way, kind of like a controlled landing, while a meteor, it just crashes, and if anything, it just gets faster while it hits the ground. People that were seeing this craft in the sky said that it also changed directions as well. And we know meteors simply do not do that. Okay. On top of that, it was said that as soon as this thing crashed, there were firefighters, two men, and the military came. So there were firefighters that were there to make sure that everything was okay, that the fire was taken care of. But soon after, like maybe within an hour or so, maybe 2 hours tops, there were already two men behind these firefighters that were wearing suits, along with a military team as well. And the men in black stated that the whole area was in quarantine and no civilian is allowed to enter. Now, based off of the eyewitness accounts, one of them being a teenager at the time by the name of Ron Strubble, stated that from what he was seeing and how the operation was going, the people that were wearing suits were actually the ones in charge of the operation and the ones that were telling orders to the military officials that were looking over the craft and taking it away to another location. On also with that, the military was saying, hurry up, we don't have much time with this, because one military official stated, and again, this is a witnessed by Ron Strubble, who was 20 years old at the time, said that one man was kind of hitting the top of the acorn. It cracked open just for a few seconds, and then something inside of it closed the door back down. And that's when people were saying, hurry up, we simply do not have much time. Allegedly, no one knows what is inside of that acorn craft, but it seems like they were kind of hearing something come out of it. And then it was said that this acorn craft was about the size of a Volkswagen buggy, and it seemed like there were two crate trucks, a few other military officials, and two people in moon suits holding a huge box. So you have the acorn craft on a truck that was covered with a tarp, and then you have several people carrying this box as well. What was in that box? Well, a little bit later on, Leslie Keene got very interested in this specific case and filed a FOIA paper in 2003. What she got back stated that NASA simply had lost two boxes that had all of the fragments from that case, and that they simply didn't have any information on it. I mean, that's pretty something else. That the fact that if this case was really important, right? If this material, if they kept it in boxes for who knows how many years, it must have been somewhat important. And then all of a sudden, NASA's saying, no, actually, we lost those boxes in 1987 when this crash happened in 1965. So for about 20 years, somehow it just disappeared. And it's later stated that well, some people believe if maybe these boxes went to Area 51 or the Wright Patterson Air Force Base. Simply, no one knows the information. There is no public paper trail of where these boxes went, or even where the craft went, or even that huge box as well that were carried by people wearing moon suits.
Yeah, that was it's an amazing summary right there. The Kecksburg case. Okay, so court was involved here. The missing documents were involved. Judges and things and Freedom of Information Act and Leslie Kane was not playing around, and NASA and other government officials had a lot of explaining to do. But that's a whole nother show. Let's stay focused here. There's first off, Kecksburg happened. This is an event that happened, witnessed by, again, the entire town of Kecksburg. It was a controlled landing. This craft came in, made a turn, and landed in the forest there. There wasn't a crash. There wasn't an explosion. There wasn't anything like that. That these are all facts. Because of its proximity to the road where this landing took place, back in the woods, but people started arriving on scene and were going up and looking at this object. A large crowd was there. The police force, the two cars in Kecksburg were there. And then the military shows up, the Army shows up, the Air Force shows up throughout the night. But everybody got a good look. And I don't think that the police were keeping people back in the beginning. There were witnesses that were right up on top of this craft and looking at it. Now, a couple of things to note here. It didn't flame out. It wasn't blackened, right? If you enter the atmosphere, you are going to be discolored and burnt. There were no descriptions of that on this craft. Number two, witnesses reported writing around the base of this craft. Some described it as hieroglyphs, symbols, but reported by multiple witnesses. That's number two. Number three, number four. The craft also bared the resemblance to the infamous, I'm going to say infamous, not famous, the infamous Nazi bell, which was reported to be a time travel device. Now, could this have been, I'm speculating here, the Nazi bell being sent from the past into the future, right? Did it go into the deep future and come back, and from the future and come back to the past to 1965 in Kecksburg? Don't know. But the description of the two, there you go. That's a great picture. Thank you for that, Cristina. Very close. Now, it looks bell-like to me. And I know that quite a few out there have called it acorn in shape. We're going to get to that in a second, though. So there are those comparisons. To say that nobody knew nothing about this and the incident didn't happen, it was tracked over North America. It was tracked over southern Canada, I believe, Michigan, Detroit, Chicago, and went in this direction across the United States from west to east and landed in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. It was tracked. It was followed. It was reported. The incident was real. The way that it turned and landed, reported by multiple witnesses. And it wasn't screaming uncontrolled like a meteor and just impacted into the earth. No, it was slow, and it came around and made a turn and went into the trees. That is a controlled landing under intelligent control. The other reports that came out, and there were suggestions from NASA and the military that this was a Russian satellite that re-entered the atmosphere. And that's why the military showed up, and the military knew about it. The military was tracking it. No, that was part of the official story that came out of the government, which has since changed many times. There wasn't anything produced to confirm any of this. There were also reports that it was a jet engine. There was reports that it was a rocket engine. There were reports that it was this and that. And I've done multiple shows on Fade to Black about this, and I'm not comfortable with, not really endorsing, but going back and repeating any of this other stuff because it's all speculation. What we have to do is stay with the facts, which is controlled landing, witnessed by multiple people from the town, multiple witnesses on scene that went up to the craft and reported what it looked like. And of course, it being tracked over multiple states. These are all the facts. And we know that the local law enforcement was there. Army shows up, Air Force shows up, then pushes the crowd back, by the way. Before that, the crowd was on top of the craft. They were all there. They were all looking at it. Okay. They pull everybody back. But from the road, everybody now sees the flatbed trucks pull up with the cranes, and they get this craft up, lifted out, and placed on the back of this military truck and drives away. Again, I'm talking about there's 50, 100 people are there, and they all report the same thing. It was placed on the back of the truck with the acorn side down and the acorn up, then covered, and then rolled out of town. Kecksburg happened. No confirmation about anything. If it would have been a Soviet satellite, especially here in 2021, no harm, no foul. Just tell us what it was. What was the Russian satellite? Why doesn't Russia tell us, what it was? They certainly would know. It's not that big of a deal now. That has never happened. I'm not sure what this was, but I have the feeling, and I've always felt this way about Kecksburg, that was an ET craft of some kind. Was there a being inside of it? The reports of, this hand coming up and pulling the lid shut. Is that fantastical? Is this everything, getting blown out, the famous game of telephone where, you say one thing and by the time it gets to the last person, you've got a completely different situation. I don't know about that. But if we just stay with the facts of this case, we have an extraterrestrial craft, whether it was piloted or it's a probe, definitely entered the Earth's atmosphere in 1965, landed in Kecksburg, and was retrieved by our military and taken somewhere. And those are the facts of the case. It really happened.
And it happened 2 years before Roswell. So you would think that it would be just
not 2 years. No. It's 1965.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's happened in 1947. Roswell, my bad. Yeah.
It's okay.
I got the numbers wrong. But I want to talk about a little bit about the Men in Black when it comes to this. So there were people were encountering the Men in Black after this happened in 1965. Now, I did a show on Mysteries with a History about the Men in Black. And for those that want to watch it, I recommend that you do. I'll put the link in the description box below a little bit later today. But it seems like whenever there is any kind of craft that is being seen, that has crashed, or if anyone has had any kind of encounter with an extraterrestrial, it seems like these people that are in suits come in so quickly and try to quiet them down. With what my biggest question is when it comes to these Men in Black is, how do they know so quickly, and how do they know who to look for so fast? I guess that's my biggest question. I mean, are they tracking these craft coming into the atmosphere, knowing what location they're going to be at, or is it something else?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you. Well, it's an open question.
Well,
an open-ended question.
It certainly is. Today, it's nothing to track somebody. It's absolutely nothing. Tracking somebody today. I'll give you just this morning. So I just traveled all weekend. I have AT&T, and I was having issues with getting a service. I was in 3 states in 3 days, and I was having issues with AT&T, and I wasn't happy about that. But anyway, so this morning I'm on a very important phone call, which dropped twice, and I'm having to go. So anyway, I get on the phone with Verizon, and I order a new cell phone. It's being shipped out. iPhone 13 Pro Max in carbon fiber. Yeah. Anyway, so Verizon has got me blah 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 blah. Okay, you need to do this. You need to do this. Okay, and I'm in my phone. Okay, I got it. And they said, okay, now go into your settings and turn off Find My iPhone with your location settings. And I said, okay. Well, I went in. I said, it's already turned off. Oh, you don't want the man to know where you're at. This is my Verizon rep, right? Now, I have location services turned off. Don't want them on. Find My iPhone is turned off. If I lose my iPhone, it's gone. But I turn that stuff off for a reason. But to have somebody refer to that to me, oh, you don't want the man to know where you are. They know where you are within a couple of feet. And so locating somebody today, you get on the phone with your buddies, dude, I just saw a UFO crash. At that point, everybody that wants to know where you are and what you saw now knows. So showing up at your location or jumping into your phone, we take it all for granted. But these same reports have happened over and over and over again. The first reports of Men in Black, I mean, they go back to the early 1950s. And did they happen at Roswell? They were probably invented at Roswell, if they are a part of our government. There are some reports that the Men in Black just may be aliens themselves. We've heard, reports of pale skin, acting really quirky and weird. You ever see the TV show Fringe?
One of the best shows out there. It's
Okay.
real good.
All right. The whole Men in Black part of Fringe, right, is one of my favorite. The imagery and how they dealt with that, I loved it. So anyway, if it's an ET situation, then them tracking or knowing not only where these objects come in and land or crash, but they know who was there and who the witnesses are. That's, I think, is an important key. This is before cell phones and everything else, but they were showing up. Now, there's another part to the Men in Black, and I've had my own encounters. Everybody knows. I've been very vocal about my Men in Black stuff, and I used to think it was all urban legend, right? Folklore, urban myth. It's not. Oh, no, that stuff really goes down, and it's real. If you've noticed it, they have a way of running pretty low key, so you may not even know. But if you have witnessed something and you're vocal about it, and you write a book or you make a phone call into a radio show late at night, and you're going, so I'm calling from Wichita, and last night this craft landed in my backyard. You can bet you're going to get a visit. I mean, you can just bet on that. Now, why would they want to do that? Well, quite possibly to scare you so you don't talk about it, or B, maybe suggest that you didn't see what you thought you saw. Right? Now, if you have a sighting and then the next thing you know, you have an abduction experience, this is where things get strange for me. Is it possible for the Men in Black to stage another event to throw off the first one? Right? So you change your story. Maybe your memory is changed. Maybe now you don't necessarily remember it as a flying saucer landing in your backyard, but you're thinking it was a helicopter, or you're thinking it was this, or you're thinking because something else happened the next day that suggests something else. Okay. Or maybe it was a secret government program that landed in the backyard, emergency landing. And 3 days later, you have an abduction experience. So this first experience that you have, all this caused by the Men in Black, now you're thinking it was a UFO experience and not a secret stealth military project. You see what I'm saying? And that's where the
Yeah.
Men in Black always seem to show up at these opportune moments. And they don't necessarily have to say anything or do anything, but just the presence and the intimidation is enough to maybe A, have you alter your story, or B, not talk about it anymore. And that's what I think the purpose is of the Men in Black. I could be wrong. But my experience tells me the opposite. I've been intimidated. Whoa. Was that me or you?
I don't know.
Did you hear that?
No. Well,
What?
another thing that I want to talk about before we end today, something that we've also spoken of before, and that is MJ12 and how can it, in your opinion, how is it related to crash retrievals?
Did somebody hear that? Sounded like keys dropping. Did anybody hear that? I want to see. Yeah, see, right?
Someone
I
said-
heard it.
I heard it.
That wasn't you, Cristina.
Nope.
That sounded loud.
But my
You know what? That was the Men in Black listening to this show. Their microphone was hot, and they dropped the keys to the black SUV. That's what it sounded like. Look, nothing in my hands. I'm just holding onto the arms of my chair. That was crazy town. See, we heard it. Yep, I did.
definitely bingo.
I did.
But don't get them too distracted. Let's talk a little bit about the
That was crazy. You didn't hear that.
someone
didn't
said
drop
glitch in the
your keys.
matrix.
That's what
Yeah.
it sounded like. It sounded like somebody. I want somebody's description. Yeah, where are these keys? Somebody, it's on tape. Yes, I agree with that. Somebody describe what they heard. I just want to know. Somebody describe what they heard. Empty liquor bottles clattering around. Kinda. That was weird, man. That was cool. Only on this show. Man, I don't know who is listening right now, but I can't flash this on the phone, but I have got a zillion texts that are coming in now. 1 minute ago.
Dang.
I'll tell you after the show.
Okay.
So I think it's an intimidation factor. I think they're collecting data. I think they want to know who is seeing what. Certainly, if it was a real experience, if there was direct contact made, I think all of these come into play. But I think that intimidation is the one thing that needs to be there. They don't need a bunch of people in the public freaking out the rest of the public, right?
Right.
And so you need to kind of collect the data, find out really what happened. Absolutely. But they don't want panic in the streets. So if there's some subtle intimidation there, you're not going to be out yelling about a contact experience. So there you go. Okay, so what was your next point?
About the Men in Black and crash retrievals. And it's something that we have spoken about before in our 2-part series of the Men in Black. But I kind of want to just go over it again for those that haven't seen that episode that we spoke about this topic. And one of them specifically being about the manual, the SOM 101 operations manual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for those that do not know about this, we did talk about it in a previous show, and it is an alleged manual of how people in the military or those that are interacting with these kinds of extraterrestrials, how to deal with it, how to take care of the security, how to take care of press releases if anything does come out about it. On chapter 3 in section 1 is called security, and it talks about press blackout. And here it states how to handle people that are openly talking about this to the media, to discredit them, to place doubt in their mind, saying that they didn't see that, or even to place deceptive statements as well, saying, well, this person is incredible because this, and this. And I feel like throughout crash retrieval stories that we have heard, real or unreal, a lot of these things that are in the manual seem to happen in real life with these stories as well. So, as we had spoken about a little bit earlier about the MJ12, it is believed that this specific manual is believed by many. They think that it's a true manual, including Stanton Freeman. And I can't remember. Does the Black Vault have this document on his website?
Does who have it?
John Greenwald for the Black Vault.
Yes. Well, remember, John only has documents that are Freedom of Information Act only. Okay, he doesn't have just random documents up there. I don't believe, unless he got it from FOIA, I don't think it's published on the Black Vault.
Okay. Well, this one is called Extraterrestrial Entities and Technology Recovery and Disposal, Top Secret, Majestic Eyes Only.
Mm-hmm.
And I, again, regardless of if it's true or not, it was published in April of 1954. It's definitely something to read. I think it's something that is worth placing effort into, especially when talking about this week, which is Crash Retrieval Week, which is awesome. It's really exciting. All of us are talking about this week for Crash Retrievals. There's a lot around the globe. And of course, today we are only talking about the ones that happen in the United States, but there are countless others globally.
Yeah, and it's if you jump into this and you start to dig through, it's not 5-6 cases. I'm going to safely say it's in the hundreds, but there are cases out there, specifically 1958 in Cave Creek, Arizona, just north of, what is now Scottsdale today. Now, Scottsdale is the upscale side of the east side, and the town itself is really tall and thin, runs north-south, but very nice part of town. But if you go up Scottsdale Boulevard and you go behind Camelback Mountain, and not very far, just a couple of miles, you come to the town of Cave Creek, and there was a crash retrieval there in 1958. And on the corner of Scottsdale Boulevard, right there. And so the story goes like this. I'm going to make this very, very quick, and you can go and look this case up. Flying saucer lands / crashes, doesn't take off. It's sitting on the ground. Air Force shows up, puts it on a flatbed, takes it away. Witnesses, towns. This is on the side of the road. The Air Force goes in. The area where this craft had landed, by the street in front of everybody there, they dig up the dirt. All of it. They truck in new dirt. Now, I'm talking about a parking lot size square area. They remove all the dirt. They bring in new dirt. And guess what they did on top of the dirt? It was just dirt before. They put in a parking lot for no reason. There was no businesses there. and they brought in asphalt, they paved it over, and the area where this flying saucer landed in 1958 is now a parking lot, and it's a parking lot today. I have been there. We don't know what happened to the craft. There are no reports. There's no civilian. There's no FAA documentation. You have multiple Air Force bases that are right there. They showed up on the scene, took the craft, took it out, dug the dirt out of this giant field, replaced the dirt, then paved over it with asphalt, painted some yellow lines on it, and split. This stuff goes on all the time, Cristina. It goes on all the time.
That's so weird. I haven't heard that story before.
I got more. I've got lots more. Let's see. Hold on. Let's go. 1958, Cave Creek, Arizona UFO. Da, 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 da. Okay. Anyway, you can go and look it up. There's too many hits here. There's too many hits. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna narrow this down. Let's go with Scottsdale.
And in your opinion, why do you think they added a parking lot there?
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, so yes. Now there is a few reports about what I just said, and you can go and look it up online. Okay, what was that, Cristina?
I said, in your opinion, why do you think they built the parking lot?
Well,
on top?
Yeah, there must have been some chemicals, that came off of this craft, radiation, the contamination of the soil. They dug the soil out, replaced the soil, and paved over it. Maybe it was harmful to humans. Maybe they wanted to cover up the evidence. I don't know, but what happened.
Okay. Well, I mean, I had to look into that story because, again, I've never heard it, and it sounds really interesting. And Jimmy, that is it for our show today. I want to say thank you so much to my super special co-host. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Thank you for everyone who gave super stickers. I forgot to turn on super chats today for this week, but thanks again for everyone. Thank you to all my moderators. You guys are fantastic. And a huge thank you to all my Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Join me for Shifting the Paradigm on Friday for a special with Pete McCarthy from Creepy Little Book, where we will also be covering classic UFO crash cases and possibly a surprise guest. And if you want to continue the discussion, bring it to my Discord server and join me and over 320 others as a topic for debate, to share knowledge, and to overall have a really good time. Just click on the beacons page below to find the link to the Discord server. So everyone, thank you for joining me. Thank you as always to all my Patreon supporters. Once again, this show simply would not be possible without your kind support, sticking with me on this journey. Jimmy, who do you have as your guest today on Fade to Black?
Anjali.
Oh, part two.
Yeah, part two. Getting the update. Contact's supposed to happen in 2021 before New Year's Eve. And we're going to get all those updates tonight with Anjali. And I'll see everybody tonight. Thank you so much, Cristina. Another great show. You're the best. Don't change.
Right back at you, Jimmy. I'll see you later. Bye. Awesome. That's awesome. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with others. And remember, keep your eyes on the skies.